Welcome
Right.
everyone to this sixth learning lunch, the PAYPA Health Check. I'm a youth arts practitioner, and we know very little for 100% certain in the arts, but we do know one thing, that youth participation and arts education is one of the strongest determining factors for lifelong participation. So it's absolutely vital, the work that we're doing in this realm, and it's absolutely vital that we take care of the work that's being done here. And I guess that's partly why we're doing this lunch today. So I'm going to hand over now to our facilitator, Karen Palmer. Karen's a theatre director and teacher, currently doing the final year of her PhD, and she's researching youth theatre, youth arts in New Zealand. So over to you, Karen.
Oh, thanks, Kane. Thanks everyone. It's really lovely to see you all joining us. It's great to see some faces to the names that I've been sending random emails to the last few years. So thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to the inaugural PAYPA Health Check in the times of COVID-19. The purpose of this meeting really was to really just connect with you in a way, and to have a little bit of a check-in with how people are doing, and to sort of jointly problem solve, and to help each other out and to support each other. We've got sort of specific challenges within our industry, as well as challenges that are relevant to everyone. So this is really just a chance to kind of check in and to hear a little bit from you if you want to share that, but also to talk a little bit about what we're going to do or what we're planning as PAYPA. Now that we are not all making shows, we have a little bit more time to do some strategic planning for the industry as a whole, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well at the end. Just before we start, would anyone like to begin with a waiata or a karakia? You're very welcome to, if anyone would like to do that. Great. Nope. Okay, cool. We'll just keep going. I just wanted to... Kia ora. Kia ora. Who's that? Oh,
this is
Delina.
Hannah. Seeing as you put out an invitation, I can say a karakia for us.
Thanks, Delina. That'd be awesome. Sorry, if you do want to speak, it's quite good if you wave at me or do the function. But just so you know, I've never done this before. And two, I'm flicking between two screens. So, yeah, just forgive me. But yes, go, Delina. That'll be wonderful. Thank you.
Kia ora. Tū tawa mai I runga, tū tawa mai I raro. Tū tawa mai I roto, tū tawa mai I waho. Kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora ki te katoa. Haumi e hui e, tāki e.
Kia ora. Thank you. Thank you very much. So something I was just reflecting on and reading, so Agitej is the wider TYA organisation that is worldwide, that most people here know about, and there was quite a lovely article by the Danish resident recently, and I liked what he said about, in times of disaster management, it's a time that we can gather, that we can consolidate, we can clarify information, and we can spend time listening. And I think that's kind of a good opportunity for us to do that now. And the other thing that I really liked was that he said that don't assume that anyone else is experiencing this like you are, so that everyone is experiencing this time differently. So I thought what would be really great would be, and I'm aware that sometimes this does take a long time, so I really don't want it to take a huge amount of time, but I do think it's really important that we do introduce each other, and we do just a little bit of a check-in, because I think we don't often meet as a whole group. It's very hard because of the distance of New Zealand, but it would be really great to hear from everyone, just very briefly about who you are, what your company is, and even a little bit about how you're finding this period of strange times I have done 2 plays about pandemics, and it feels like my art has come to life, which is kind of quite disturbing. Ralph knows, Hannah know this well. So what I'll do is I'll quickly introduce myself, and then I will go to our other panelists we are the sort of interim PAYPA board. And PAYPA, we'll talk a little bit more about it in case you don't know, it's kind of the New Zealand ASITEJ. So we're kind of hoping that we can build this group into something a little bit stronger and work as advocates for the TYA industry. So yep, really briefly, I'm Kieran, and I have been having lots of time to write my PhD, which is great, but I also have 2 teenagers at home, which is really, really challenging. So that's what's going on for me at the moment. I'd like to introduce Marianne Taylor as one of our panelists. Marianne, if you could just give us a quick intro.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Marianne Taylor. I'm creative producer at Capital E, and I am responsible for our National Theatre for Children, as well as our National Arts Festival. Yes, like everyone here, everything's been put on hold, and we've been writing ridiculous numbers of pandemic level response plans. But I'm really thrilled to be joining the PAYPA board and the panel, because I really feel that this is an opportunity for us to really invigorate the sector in general. Theatre for Young Audiences extends beyond Capital E's brief. We go up to aged 14. So I very much want to be part of an enabler and supporter of this group.
Thanks, Marianne. Jenny Wake is also one of our PAYPA representatives.
Hi, I'm Jenny. I'm the director of Calico Young People's Theatre, which has been around for quite a long time and has morphed through various stages. And in the past, we've done professional theatre for young audiences, toured right throughout the country. But at the moment, the focus is on supporting schools to do whole school productions. And so Calico provides production packages that include script, music, costumes, scenery, enough costumes for 350 kids or so, props, and a little bit of support in terms of director support if that's needed. Thankfully, there was only one production actually underway in a school when the lockdown happened. They usually do school productions in terms 2, 3, and 4. So at the moment, I'm just waiting to, I think the school that was rehearsing will probably go ahead later in the year, but I suspect that other schools maybe won't go ahead with productions this year. They'll be really just in survival mode and supporting their schools through this next little while. So not sure what's going to happen there, but actually enjoying the peace and quiet at the moment. So after the initial couple of weeks of stress and anxiety, it's a peaceful world out there. So I facilitate the network. So if you receive PAYPA newsletters or calls for news, they're coming from me, and thank you to those who contribute, and it's lovely to see so many of you here. And I also do the connection between PAYPA and ASITEJ, which is the International Association of Children's Theatre Professionals, practitioners, and keep us connected with that wider world with the opportunities. So that's me.
Great, thanks Jenny, fantastic. Yeah, sorry for lots of acronyms in there. PAYPA at the moment stands for Performing Arts for Young People Aotearoa, and it was something that some of you came to a hui about 4 years ago, and we kind of came up with that as an acronym instead of ASITEJ, which is a French acronym which I can never say properly. Great, Lynn Cardy is also on PAYPA board. Lynn.
Kia ora, everyone. Yeah, I'm Lynn Cardio. I'm the Associate Director at Auckland Theatre Company, and I guess this is, like for everyone, been a very tricky time for us. Obviously, everything's on hold and we're all working from home. It's been interesting recently because I think we, like everyone, initially, or in most big organisations, kind of went hell for leather. We've got to quickly get into the online space and put a whole lot of work up, and we very quickly discovered that that wasn't really in our wheelhouse. So it's actually been quite interesting rethinking what we doing, using this time to really consider what our role can be in terms of developing new work and what do we want to do in that space. And because I look after and program all of the work in our creative and youth arts area, actually that's been a space that I think is really benefiting from this time. So at the moment, we're putting quite a lot of effort into creating educational resources and also working alongside the artists and teaching artists that we currently work with to redesign and re-look at what we might do in the future, including next year and beyond. And also reconsidering what some of the creative connections might be within that space for the future. So that's sort of where we're at. And in terms of being involved in this organisation, I think it's fantastic to connect with everybody who is working with children and young people, and to make our sector stronger and to really advocate for our sector is what I'm really interested in. Yeah, so that's
cool. For now. Thanks, Lynn. You're cutting in and out a little bit. Not quite sure if you want to just tweak your microphone. Tim Bray.
Good, everybody. I'm Tim Bray. I'm the founder and artistic director of Tim Bray Theatre Company. We're a registered charitable trust. I established the company 29 years ago in 1991, and we were 2 weeks shy of launching our 100th production since then of Greedy Cat by Joy Cowley. We're not an investment client of CNZ, so we are struggling at the moment. Where we had an office staff of 8, we've now lost 3. We're down to 5, and we have no income. So I've got a lot of overheads. We've got the MSD subsidy for those people, but that's only for 12 weeks. We have offices, storage, and we're in an audit process at the moment. We've got a lot of overheads that we're having to contend with. We've just done a fundraiser to our audience, which has overwhelmed us with the support and the generosity of and why they want to help us. We've had over 100 donations, which has been really incredible. What I love about this is that so often we feel by ourselves in this, so I think that this gathering is nurturing and really healthy for us all. So thank you, it's really cool. Nice to have you all here.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks. Great. So that's kind of the board as a whole. But what would be great would be to check in with everyone, just individually. If you don't want to speak, that's fine. Just say pass. But it would be. I know there's lots of people I can recognise popping up that I haven't actually met, and it would just be really great to say where you are in the country. So Marianne and I, for example, are in Wellington, Jenny is in Napier, Tim and Lynn are both in Auckland. It's just kind of quite good to get a sense of where we are all geographically. Kane's in Palmerston North, right? Yep. Cool, and so yeah, just briefly who you are, what your company is, and maybe just something about how you're finding this crazy experience. I'm just going to go around in order for what I've got on my screen, which is starting with you, Lauren Jackson. And I know Natasha is your partner in crime, isn't she? So maybe the two of you can have a quick intro about your company and about how you're finding things, very appropriately with children.
Yes, very on brand with my daughter in frame. She wants to introduce us a little bit, don't you? Go on then. Where are we?
We're in Auckland.
And what's your name?
Rose.
Rose. And I'm Mummy. I'm Lauren Jackson, and this is Natasha Diaz is my co-director and buddy, and we run Brickworks Drama School in Te Atatū Peninsula.
And I know something for your help.
Yeah. And we run weekly classes, we run holiday workshops, and every year we write and stage a production with all of our children. And this year we've received funding to make a short film with all of our children. We are in the process of writing back to creative communities with new plans because we've had to shuffle the schedule of the film, and we're also investigating the possibility of online teaching, which maybe Natasha, do you want to talk about?
No. No. I mean, what Laura and I have discussed briefly, if like we as parents understand that many parents might feel overwhelmed with this homeschooling, and it's not an easy thing, especially if you are teaching little kids, because you need to have the parent next to them. So it's we just want to also survey what parents feel, if they want to do it or not, because it's a lot of pressure right now. Laura and I can feel it. I can feel it. Like I have so many things now on my plate and I really want to try to cope with everything, but it's not an easy, and also because we know the experience of teaching online, especially theater, it's so different. So we need to find the best strategies to reach our community. Yeah.
Right.
So we've sort of sent out a survey to find out what parents actually want and need, rather than impose another piece of technology on them that might not help them right now. So
yeah,
we'll be interested to get those results.
To see what that results in that. Fantastic, thank you. Lauren also is a scriptwriter for Duffy Theatre, so I thought I'd just do a little segue to David to talk just a little bit about Duffy Theatre as well, which is now in Auckland. David.
Yes. Cool. Hi. So I'm David. I'm in Auckland, and I am the production manager for Duffy Theatre, like Kieran said. So we started a tour of primary schools with 2 teams touring a show. At the start of February, we got to 68 out of about 500 schools, and then we had to put a hold on the tour, obviously. So that involves 6 actors that are now locked down, 5 of them in Auckland and 1 in Taupo, just at their homes. And they are kind of just in a waiting pattern like the rest of us. We're lucky enough that we don't really have a lot of overheads. Any accommodation that we had booked was through Airbnb that we could cancel for free, which was really helpful. And our actors are basically being paid by the wage subsidy at the moment, and just sort of sitting and waiting and providing little YouTube videos and stuff that we can send out to families, because we have quite a few families that we can engage with through the Greater Foundation as well. So we're just sitting and waiting and seeing when we can go back into schools and mass gather.
Right. Thanks, David. Awesome.
No,
Brian, do you want to introduce yourself as well for people that don't know who you are? But we can come back to you a bit more at the end for a little bit more from you as well.
Kia ora koutou, my name's Brian Munro. I'm the Arts Practice Director for Community and Youth Arts at Creative New Zealand. So what that means is that I have a responsibility within our organisation for maintaining an overview of community arts practice and youth arts practice across the country. So over the last couple of weeks, we've been completely reorientating our work and all of our project funding towards an emergency response, which I'm really happy to speak to later if useful. Otherwise, I'm very happy for people to contact me directly, and I've popped my email address into the chat. What's been really interesting is hearing about the response across the wider arts sector, so not just theatre, in terms of in relationship to working with young people. There's a lot of great initiatives out there, and so I think anything that actually joins the dots and collaborates, where you're collaborating with each other, is really awesome, because obviously with the online capacity that everybody's engaging with, that means that the reach can go much further. Okay, that's enough for me now.
Thanks,
Thank
Brian.
you so much.
Kia ora, great. Michael Bell.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Michael here from Christchurch, New Zealand Playhouse. I think similar to Tim and David, we were just about to start our tour for the year. We had 450 schools booked in, ready to go, and obviously kind of over the period of about a week, we went from being unsure to realizing that we're probably not going to be able to see that tour happen at all this year. So at the moment we're hoping to do it next year, so just picking it up as it was next year, and the schools so far have been really receptive and said that they'll so it's looking like we'll be able to do that. Also, you know, we're not an investment client either, so we're not really eligible for you know, the help, which that means it's been awesome that Creative New Zealand's came out with help, but yeah, we haven't sort of worked out how we could be eligible for that. So yeah, so we're facing you know, it's not our usual annual cost, of course, but we've got a year's worth, and we run things very tight. That kind of the double stress is that we've kind of just got Playhouse to the point of profitability, so we use that to prop up Little Andromeda, which is my latest project, which is also not an investment client, so we're kind of like a bit of a double stress there. But yeah, I mean, the staff at Playhouse have been really awesome, and the actors have been awesome, and so yeah, we're just kind of going to wade through it and see see if we get through this year, and hope we do. That's us.
Great, thanks, Michael. Fantastic. Riley, tell us about you.
Hi, I might bring in Rachel as well. We're kind of a
oh, great. Yep. And Rachel
work in the education department at the Court Theatre with Rach.
Cool.
Yeah, Rachel, do you want to talk about what we've been up to?
Yeah, sure. Hey everyone, thanks for having us here. Riley and I are pretty lucky because we're part of a bigger organisation. So I guess the sort of, although it's in our world a little bit, the full company work is being done by the senior leadership team, so we can get on with running a weird, wonderful program as best we can in these times. We have explored some online learning with extracurricular classes that we run already. So that's been very much focused on maintaining a relationship and providing the community, the space for our existing community. So allowing our young people to still keep coming together and seeing each other. And we think we've got about 50% of our students wanting that. And we're continuing to run that on sort of a mini basis so that we can keep reviewing regularly. I think that during level 3 and 4, there'll be that desire for online learning from at least some of our community who really enjoy coming together and seeing people that they know and getting to sort of play and be experimental. We've also got a youth company who are still meeting online and creating a devised piece of work in response to the situation at the moment called, well, I don't know what it's called yet, Quarantine Dreamers or the Quarantine Diaries, but watch this space, we'll make something. And then we have school tours that we run. We're lucky that we didn't have anything running at the moment. Well, we lost the last part of our secondary school road safety tour that we run in collaboration with Christchurch City Council. And we are due to have a primary school tour touring later this year, but I'm not sure if that will happen or not. But yeah, we're sort of chugging away in Christchurch, doing little bits of online learning, experimenting with what we can do, but missing eye contact.
Great, thanks guys, thanks. Court Theatre, sticking in the South Island. Hannah and Mel, you're coming, aren't you, both of you? Mel Luckman and Hannah Wheeler, yeah? Great.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Mel and that's Hannah. Wave Hannah.
Go Mel.
Our Coven Theatre Company, and we make work for audiences under 5, so little kids. And yeah, we just sort of, it's all been a bit weird really, and we've lost some contracts like everybody else with regional festivals and things like that, being cancelled or postponed, and we're, yeah, it's in a slightly tricky space in terms of what we make at the moment. Just because our audiences are so young, we're not super keen on creating a whole lot of online content for them because we're not sort of super, you know, screen focused for our audience. So we're just sort of in the process of trying to find ways around that and really supporting the parents and caregivers and stuff that are with the children to create creative artistic experiences at home with their kids. And yeah, and we're in the process of putting together a big CNZ application to sort of facilitate and support that work that we've already sort of started over this time. That's kind of where we're at.
Great. Cool. Thanks, Mel. Did you want to add anything, Hannah?
Yeah, sorry, I finally got myself off mute. Kia ora everyone, I'm Hannah. Yeah, we're navigating this interesting time together as a company, and it's interesting, but we're positive about it. So yeah, thanks.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Cool. Next, Jessie Robinson.
Oh, kia ora, guys. I'm Jessie. I am an ex-performing arts teacher turned a part of the learning team at Te Papa. And by night I am, so obviously I'm in Wellington, and by night I have been starting to work on Hutt City Musical Theatre's Junior League, and we were due to be putting on a production of Annie Junior, which we've had to put on hold, along with our other 2 senior productions. So being a community theatre, I'm really interested to kind of hear from anyone else, and you know, we really focus on the community that's around us in the Hutt, and getting those students in who might not have access to drama schools or be able to go to regular classes. And so because of that, we don't have a steady base that when we lost Annie, we could just continue to communicate with these students online or whatever it was. So it's kind of interesting to us about how we kind of keep up the connections for these students when we don't have a how do I put this? It's not that we don't have a need, it's that they don't really have anything tying themselves to us, because in the way of fees or anything like that they've already paid for the term. So yeah, there's just kind of this idea of how do we keep this going, and also how do we recover from this in terms of the fact that we are so voluntary. What's it going to look like once everything is lifted? Are people going to want to be sending their children to, you know, groups where there's a whole lot of other children and adults and stuff like that? So yeah, I'm really interested in discussions around that in general. So yeah, kia ora.
Right, thanks, Jessie. Right, Trick of the Light, Ralph and Hannah.
Kia ora. We are a company called Trick of the Light. We make and tour original work around New Zealand and overseas as well, sometimes which are nightmare-inducing crossover works for children and adults. We have a pretty nomadic life, but we're ostensibly based in Wellington. We're actually in Christchurch at the moment. We'd been down here making a new show with the Court Theatre with Rachel and Riley and everyone, called Lysander's Auntie, and we got just into the start of production week before we had to slam on the handbrake. So we've since been kind of plotting what to do next. We're trying to bring forward some of the development on new shows that we had planned for a longer time frame, but we've lost all of our touring through to March next year, so we're making it up as we go along.
Yeah, a lot of our touring has always been international, and so it's pretty interesting restructuring thinking going on.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Delina, you're up next. Can you hear me, Delina?
Kia ora, everyone.
Kia ora.
So dark.
You are really dark, aren't you?
I'm just in a cupboard. I currently work for the Auckland Arts Festival. I'm the head of programming there, and so it's wonderful to see many artists on this here who we've worked with and presented. One thing I can say is that the festival is going through a complete rethink about what the festival is going to look like in 2021. We've already got a new artistic director who's just started in March, Shona McCullough. So if everyone wants to keep their eye out, there will be a call out going to artists coming out soon. So if you've got projects or ideas you'd like to put forward to the festival, please do. Also with my other hat on, I run a little producing company called Betsy and Mana Productions, and produce for my husband's little physical theatre clown group called Whiteface Crew, who make work for children and young people and adults. And so, like many others, we had an application in for a new work to Creative New Zealand Arts Grant, and so the guys are now just rethinking what will happen with that particular work, or whether they can find other ways to work together, and what might that process look like, given it really kind of relies on them being in the same room and creating that element of play is how they generate a lot of their work. So lots of thinking about process. The guys are kind of lucky, but also not lucky, because all their work's dried up, but the Whiteface Crew isn't their only thing that they do. They sort of freelance. So yeah, but it's a completely changed landscape. So we're just seeing what happens next. And in the meantime, we're just here at home in Auckland with 3 of our kids here at home doing school. So we'll definitely be checking out some of your guys' online activities and things. So kia ora.
Kia ora, thanks Darlene. Can you just confirm, so Auckland Arts Festival is still looking at going ahead next year, is that what did you say that, or is that something that's up in the air?
Yeah, so I mean, there seems to be board meeting after board meeting happening at the moment at that higher level, but at the moment, one of the options is that the festival does continue in March, and it's a reimagined festival, potentially with a focus on local artists. Obviously, if the borders and things are still closed, Shona and David are just kind of still working through with the board what that might look like. But I know they're definitely putting a call out to artists in the next couple of weeks.
Great, that's really great to know.
With 2021 in mind, but also 22, 23, 24.
Oh, thank you. Excellent, awesome. Emma Bishop.
Kia ora. Yeah, I'm Emma Bishop, and I wear a few hats in the arts landscape in New Zealand. So I am the current Vice President of Drama New Zealand, the Drama Teachers Association for Arts, Drama and Education. I'm also on the National Association for Music Theatre New Zealand, and we kind of look after the community theatre side of musical theatre. I'm the national coordinator for Junior Theatre New Zealand, so I work with iTheatrics in New York, who create Broadway junior musicals, and we run a children's festival every year in New Zealand, which is meant to happen in October. I'm the co-host and producer of Kick Arts Radio Show, which is the weekly arts radio show on Planet FM. And personally, I have a performing arts company called Stage Antics, where I have private students and I put on productions and musicals here in Auckland. So at the moment, I'm actually way busier than I've ever been in my life in the last 3 weeks. For Drama New Zealand, we have been responding to COVID for teachers in New Zealand, primary and secondary. We have been running a series of workshops called Reaching the Edges, which is we've had playing games with Evan Hastings from theatre. We've had a primary pop-in with Juliet Cottrell, who's also on the line today. Hi, Juliet. And we've got lots and lots of workshops coming up with that. For Junior Theatre New Zealand, America's iTheatrics have just put out their first ever Zoomsicle, which is a redefined musical, 20 minutes long, 16 students on Zoom. They danced, they sang. It was absolutely amazing, and you can jump onto iTheatrics and see that.
Cool.
We are still planning our festival in October. We are reimagining that because obviously our international guests won't be able to come from America, but we are looking at running that through New Zealand with portion, kind of like telethon used to be, where we've got it happening throughout the country with our New Zealand practitioners. So it's lovely to see so many associate members here from Drama New Zealand. And if anyone wants to find out more about Drama New Zealand, get in touch.
Great, thanks Emma. And it might be really good if we've got time at the end to just check in. I know there's been lots of talk on DramaNet about how, particular with senior students, how they're going to access NCA, and there's a lot of people trying to problem solve around that, and how some of our companies could help with that. It might be really nice to just touch base with you
Definitely.
around that. Yeah.
And we've also got a forum happening on Friday with Angela
Cool.
Hodgkins, who is the National Internal Assessment Moderator, but we also do, of course, have links to the external. And yes, we are reaching out for performing arts specialists to be a part of these workshops, which we have money to pay people. So if you're interested in running workshops, get in touch.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Emma. That's really great to know. Excellent. Juliet, you're up next.
Hi everyone. Can I just invite Champa in as well? Or how do I say your real name? Jandira? Unmute yourself, Champs.
Yes,
there she is. So we are the drama workshop and the Hawke's Bay Youth Theatre. So obviously we're in Hawke's Bay, and yeah, as soon as everything hit the fan, we had lessons owing to students for term 1, and I'm sure there'll be some other people there in the same boat. So we jumped online immediately and kept that engagement going, kept that connection, took a couple of weeks off and have had a think about how that all works. And essentially what we've done is closed down our classes for our young children, except for keeping in contact with them. But we're keeping the Hawke's Bay Youth Theatre going, and that's essentially 2 development groups and a main group. What Habit, that's our nickname. What we do is we prepare at least 1 major show every year, and we tour it in New Zealand and Australia. This year we're not. Well, we hadn't planned to anyway, so we're quite lucky in that way. But we are doing a show for the Hawke's Bay Festival. So we're just working around with, that's in October, working with them to see what that's going to look like and be, and we're still committed. How that's going to happen, well, we're starting online. We start rehearsals next week online. I'll just introduce Champa. She's our movement director and co-director of the piece that we're doing, which is Every Man by Carol-Anne Duffy. There she is. Tell us a little bit about you, Champs, and what you're doing.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you so much for having me here and sharing this space with you all. It's been really lovely hearing I think the connective tissue between you all, and that the ideas are still there and bubbling. It's so easy when we're sort of caught, I think, in our own bubble that we get out of touch and out of sync, and we feel so alone in what we're doing. Personally, I feel kind of blessed, very much in a position of privilege. We're enjoying the time at home, homeschooling my 8-year-old, but it's been really interesting. Sort of overcoming this new exciting creative problem solving that we've been thrown into. I think it's a great opportunity to really examine how we deliver our work, I think, and deliver our teaching and deliver our learning opportunities in a way, it's so easy to do the same thing all the time and every day. But the exciting thing is how we can actually be creative by being creative. The interesting challenge for me personally, because I'm also a contemporary dance teacher and choreographer, and I also run the Human Project, which is a movement and contemporary dance collaborative sort of collective in Hawke's Bay, and we create shows for touring again and performing at festivals, and we performed at the Performance Arcade in Wellington and things. But the interesting thing is, when you're delivering, I've found the challenge being when you're delivering physical work for young people, it's such a visceral art form, and it's so connectivity is the thing that makes it happen. And so what happens when you take that away, when you put people in a bubble? So it's just re-examining, I think, how to foster their not just their spontaneity and creativity, but also their courage, because it's so much easier for them to get courage of breathing the same air as the people, or being in somebody else's personal space, which is what we do a lot of. But how do you foster their courage when they have to create alone? And how do you deliver that learning in a way that they feel that they've got the tools to continue forward on their own, but enough to generate their own new material as well, and to share that. So that's been, I mean, I feel really privileged to be working under Juliet too, because Juliet does all the heavy lifting and I get to play and do all the creative stuff. So Juliet, thank you.
Cool, thank you. Awesome. Thanks so much. I'm coming from, I think, Nelson, Bridget. I think you guys are in Nelson, yes?
Yes, we are.
Yes, cool, welcome. Bridget and
Roger.
Roger.
Yes, hello.
Kia ora. We're BirdLife Productions from Nelson. We make a whole variety of stuff, but most recently puppet theatre and storytelling. We were on tour in the North Island when all this crazy stuff happened, so we got home very quickly. We're quite lucky that it's just the two of us in our company, so not big overheads at all. And we decided to just hunker down and make new work. So we have started on a new project which has been in the pipeline in our minds for quite a long time. Very exciting, and we're working really hard. So what we do with that and when we can do something with it is up in the air, but we are hoping to make a video component of that, which it has an education element through the storyline. So it's possible we could share that to schools at some point. Before we can get out there again, and we'll put a funding application into CNZ for that as well, hopefully. So try and make it financially viable to be at home for this time. And we're also collaborating via Zoom with the lovely Daniel Allen, who is helping us do some direction from our laptop, which is a new experience, but we just felt we needed to bring someone else into that virtual bubble in order to keep the whole thing alive and moving forward. So yeah, new times, creatively being creative.
Yeah, again, our whole thing is intimate live performance, you know, and it's all about being in the same room with people who watch the sweat drip off the end of your nose, you know, and how powerful an experience that is very much certainly where I come from in terms of what I want to do. So suddenly being put into sort of the internet zone is kind of very strange.
Yeah, I think it's hard, isn't it? Because I think so much of like my work as a theatre practitioner has been getting kids off screens and into the theatre, and then suddenly it's like, no.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's something that we're probably struggling with.
It's a bit counterintuitive in that respect, but let's see where it goes. Yeah.
I hear you. Thanks, guys. Fantastic. And from up the coast, we've got Peter Wilson. Are you still there, Peter? You've got to unmute. Hi, Peter.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? How's Little Dog Barking Theatre going?
Little Dog Barking's going, well, they're all having a little sleep at the moment, or let's hope they're having creative dreams.
Yes.
Yes, it was all a bit of a shock. We had all our bookings cancelled for the year, basically overnight. But I think we're using the time to think and to think creatively, because we don't know when our audiences will be back, and that's our school audiences, and we don't even know our public audiences, whether they'll be back as well, because if I was a parent, I probably wouldn't be taking my child to the enclosed theatre at the moment. So there are two things. So we've cancelled all our public seasons at the moment, although we're crossing our fingers and still preparing for our production of The White Tree, which was due to open at Circa Theatre in July, but I somehow don't think it's going to happen. We've talked a lot with the members of my company about video and streaming and those sorts of things. They're really good tools, but theatre doesn't transfer. Theatre is live, and we've got to wait for that audience to come back. So that's what we're doing at the moment, is having creative thinking time and doing time. And you might find a completely different direction that Little Dog Barking will go in when the lockdown comes off.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Peter. Thank you.
And oh, by the way, so we are basically a puppet theatre and mask theatre. That's our genre that we work to all the time. But of course, we tell stories.
And mostly sort of your age group is?
Yes, after leaving Capital E, I tended to work with much younger audiences. So we worked from 3 to up to about 7.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Peter.
Good.
Awesome. I've got just a couple more people. I think Jonty is here from Bats Theatre, and Tanya and Shakina. I think that's everyone. Hey, Jonty, how you doing?
Kia ora, Karen. Sorry. Ko tapawa nuku te maunga, ko wairo te awa, ko Ngāti Pākehā toko iwi, ko Henry te whānau, ko Jonty aho Ngami Nui. Kia koutou. Lovely to see so many people. As has been said before, but it's worth saying again, lovely to see so many people that I know. But perhaps more importantly, there are a number of these people that I'm now Zooming with who I've not met before. And it's wonderful that Jenny invited me to this gathering because I find it really inspiring to listen to you as creators, as makers, as people that work with young people. Obviously, we're all, I think, really reaching out and connecting up. But I just want to say that at the moment, what's in my mind is we had a wonderful mihi whakatau with some of our casual workers and some of our artists joining us. My heart goes out to you artists at the moment as you're changing plans, reframing your work, particularly because at the time that I've been at BATS over the last 18 months, I've met more artists probably in my life than in the space of 18 months and say 10 years even, because of the traffic at BATS. So a little bit of an update about BATS as a venue and as a community. This is in response to what I've heard today, actually. So I've just been framing up what I would like to say. The first thing is we've been a really busy organisation since we moved back to our new premises at 1 Kent Terrace. For those of you that haven't visited us, we now have 3 spaces, 3 distinct boutique spaces. And we were averaging about 130 and 140 presentations a year. We ain't going back there. We've decided not to go back there before COVID, and it's even more important for us to think about what other ways BATS can deliver and enable artistry to happen. There are 2 areas that BATS sits really, really well in. One is the area that was championed in the new iteration by BATS by my colleague Simon Bennett and now I'm going to forget Simon Elson. In the sense that it was a space for young people to be bolshy, to bring a bit of punk back to BATS. In the first year of BATS, for those of us that remember, there was a real clash of art form from the phenomenal frock show to music to a weird German piece about unemployed people in Edinburgh. You know, amazing mixture for the time of work. And we really are wanting to focus on that. Stella Reid gifted us a notion at one of our hui last year when she talked about what about the mid-career motherfuckers. And so we have a thing called the BATS cycle, which is about looking after people who come back to BATS who may have emerged through BATS or through other sectors. So we're really teasing that out in the current moment to think about what does that mean in terms of the shifts we need to make to support well-being. And this was something we started to work on as a team to support hauora and well-being and also sustainability in this. And that is uppermost in my mind at the moment. And this has really emerged for me from the passing of Dean Parker, who I'm feeling very strongly. Can't even write something on Facebook yet because I can't work out what to say about that man. But also because we're aware that what BATS did was create a lot of opportunity for work, but not really career sustainability. So we sit still with the emerging artists area and the rangatahi area, but we're also mindful of people that we have relationship with or we can find to have relationship with that may not be just about putting work on for the experience or for the chance of upskilling, but actually because they need that to pay the rent. They need income to pay the rent. And we don't think with the, the box office is necessarily the way. And obviously some of the conversations around the way that our arts is funded is really important at the moment. I mean, to be blunt, you can't make any money at BATS because we want to keep our ticket prices low. And with 85 seats, how's that going to work? So we're looking at those questions and what is emerging and has been emerging over the past few months and in a way is at the pointy end of what we're thinking about are the different strands of activity that can happen with a resource. We're aware that we're a resource and we're aware that we can be a hub and we can be used more effectively than we currently are. We can widen the bandwidth of activity. We can really look to reach out to to be more inclusive and to find pockets of the community or people that are around that want to engage with us that we currently don't know about or haven't had the means to be able to. Price barriers has been a real stumbling block for us. The ability for people to make work when they have meager resources, or the ability for people to travel from other parts of the city to come and be a part of us were issues that we were starting to work with. How that shakes down in the immediate term is over the next couple of months is that we're looking at the strands of activity, and we pivoted really quickly into the digital space because that was a request that was made and something we felt we wanted to test. And in a way, I'm quite mindful of the fact that there's something quite glorious about bats, that we can give it a go and we can fuck up and people forgive us. So we want to protect that space as well, where we really want to explore how we can be a space to test and to reach out possibly past what you can necessarily do, but to test and be bullshit. And one of the things that sits alongside that is that just before we shut the doors to the public, which was the 19th, we opened a show called Mana Mataka, which Nina Deckers Reihana had pitched to do, and it was part of an involving way that we were exploring what art meant to our young people. And that to me sits within that. It's not necessarily traditional art. It was about artistic expression. It was about finding the artistry inside yourself, whether you ended up being a practitioner or an artist or not. And that was something that was really beautiful. And unfortunately, only had one iteration before we had to close our space to the public. But it reminded us of the importance of how we can really explore that inclusivity readily. And so partnering with people like yourselves or finding ways that we can be a conduit to those sort of conversations are very interesting, are very important for us, particularly because we're trying to shake down and we're trying to explore what creating safe spaces, in this day and age now, that's got a whole new meaning, but to creating safe spaces for our artists means that we need to shift from perhaps some of our structures that disempower some of our people that come in the building, some of our structures that are a little bit of a post-colonial theatre hangover, that are about things that we feel facilitate good work and practice making, but we're challenging ourselves. So we're on a journey ourselves as a team to see what that means, and we're interested in conversations that in a way will disturb and shift us even further. We're working a lot with different people about what that means, but as I say, the real nub of that is around well-being and around Haora principles. But you will notice there have been some changes in what we're trying to do. Nobly, and Jane Young challenges me on this all the time, we'd love to decolonize our space. Her response is we'll leave the country. So there we go.
Cool. Thank you, John T.
The notion of that, yeah. Could I just finish up by saying that we're taking a bit of time to listen, and so we invite further conversations to be able to really, we just want you to take a little bit of time to listen and to prepare a way forward. We're determined that bats won't go back. We will be going in a different direction. What that means in the current, in the next couple of months will probably mean different strands of activity that may involve different usages of the space. Sorry if I've talked a little bit long, but I got excited about that meeting. However, I need to leave now, which is very rude, because I've got a budgeting,
Thank you, John T.
budgeting meeting. So
Right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, John T. And I think if anyone's got any questions for you, you can just email you, yeah? Particularly around Bat's role there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like that idea of listening and sort of being open to suggestions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Cheers,
Thanks, John
Karen.
T. Excellent. Tanya, I don't know you, but hello, would you just like to introduce yourself?
Sure, kia ora, talofa, I'm Tanya, and thank you for the invitation, Lynn, Kari, who emailed me yesterday, and a big hello to everybody. I've worked with a lot of people that are in this space today, so yeah, it's really nice to see you all, and it's awesome that everybody's checking in. I think it's really great. In terms of me working with young people in young theatre, so I'm from Pacific Underground, and we've been around for like 27, something ridiculous like that, years. We celebrated 25 years all of last year in our 25th year. but we've been going longer than that. Anyway, originally from Christchurch, and then have been working and living in Auckland for the last nearly 10 years. So since the earthquake specifically. So my background is theatre, music and events. And so I guess from a theatre perspective, Pacific Underground, we used to tour. We did about 10 or 12 years of touring in schools with school plays from the early 90s till about 2004. And I also used to run a youth holiday program that was all around theatre and performing arts in the early 90s. And what I do know is that, which is also that this network is so large, is that it's defined where I am and where I am in theatre. And I know that theatre for young people really works. And so the last few years, and specifically working with Lynn Cardi, has been we started a project at Mangere Arts Centre, which is an annual holiday show in Mangere of South Auckland. We work with about up to 50 South Auckland kids and families, and we would be in our week of production right now. So we would probably be up to about show number 5. If we were in a COVID situation. So so all of that, so on Facebook I've been seeing all of the the memories of that production that would be on right now. So it's quite, hard, sad, but we're in a new world. In terms of Pacific Underground, we've kind of lived this life for the past 10 years post earthquake, and so a lot of our Christchurch people know about, and I must say that at this time our government has really pulled through for us really very quickly. So I think everybody is a lot luckier than what we were back then. So Pacific Underground has worked in this space where we've been kind of remotely working with actors, producers, writers all around the country, and trying to, when we put our shows together, when we do get a chance to perform, which isn't as often as what we used to do, it does take a bit of connecting and reconnecting with everybody, but we've kind of established this loyalty amongst our members and past members to be able to pull shows together. And so I just want to say to everybody that all the work that you do is awesome, and hope to encourage you to continue in this new world. Nothing will ever be the same as it was, but theatre and performing arts toughens you and prepares you for this work. So just encourage you all to keep going, and I think the forums are really great, and I'm really feeling for the venues. So I've worked in a lot of venues as well, and the performing all the theatre and event spaces, because that commands audiences and bringing people together. But I reckon there's going to be some amazing solutions coming out of it. And yeah, just we're in survival mode, and we know what that's like. So if anyone needs to ask me any questions about things like that, just get in touch. It's all good.
Thanks, Tanya.
A lot of people here that know who I am. So if you, there's my email on.
Yeah, it's right up there. Fantastic.
So,
thank you so much. And where are you based, Tanya?
I'm in Auckland.
Auckland, sweet, great.
So yeah,
fantastic.
Kia ora, team.
Kia ora. Cool, thanks everyone. I know there's a couple of people that are just watching that don't want to say anything. That's fine. Is there anyone else that I've missed that wants to introduce themselves at this point? I know that's taken some time, but I do think that the point of this really was to connect and to kind of come together as an industry, really, as an industry within an industry. And I think it was really great to hear. I think in particular things like about the challenges that we're facing, but also the things that a lot of us are just taking time to think and to plan and to re-examine the way that things are working, which I think is a really it's almost like it's a great time for a practitioner to do that. I found that even just taking time out as a practitioner to do research was actually a time where I didn't have to think creatively, that I could actually start to think a little bit more strategically and a little bit more like, okay, so all these problems that I've pushed away as a practitioner because I just have to survive, I can now have a bit of time to think about, which is fantastic. But I think we've still got some really major issues that will be really great to just touch touch base on. And one I think is, it'd be really good if anyone has any sort of, I guess, concerns or immediate concerns around funding, around the implications that this is doing. I'm obviously really feeling for Tim and Michael and people that are companies that are not funded, you know, on an annual basis through CNZ. And I just wondered if there's any questions for Brian, or if there's anything that we can kind of, you know, any other questions that come out of that, people that have fallen through the cracks, anyone that's sort of in real desperate sort of need for some relief as to any questions that we can kind of talk about at this stage. Yeah, if that would be sort of a...
Yeah, Kieran, I think one thing that for our sector in particular that's really hard is that we don't generate huge box office in delivering to children and young people, and so funding is even more pertinent, particularly for our sector. So it'll be interesting to hear what other people have to say about that.
Yeah, great. If you want to talk, you can do a little thumbs up or a wave at me.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, Marianne, it's like you're exactly right. Our productions cost the same as one for adults. We have the same cost of rehearsal space, the same cost of actors, a designer costs the same, marketing costs the same, the venue costs the same. We have the same costs as theatre for adults, but we can only charge ticket prices that families and schools can afford. So it's always a challenge to generate funds from box office for children, you know, and young people against an adult theatre company show that has the same costs.
Right. Does anyone have any, I guess, questions for CNZ, for Brian, while we've got her undivided attention? I guess specifically about this time at the moment, about yeah, as a response to what's happening currently.
Yeah. So I mean, I was I Skyped Angela the other day, so probably her answer would be the same as yours, Brian. But for everyone else, basically, probably the stance for theatre companies like ours, I think from Creative New Zealand, please correct me if I'm wrong, but would be wait till July and see what the new package is then, and see if there's any possibility there. And I would say from there, maybe we could just keep encouraging Creative New Zealand to remember us. But I don't know if is there anything you like? Have I? Sorry,
No,
yeah.
no, that's
You guys speak to that better than me, Brian.
That's absolutely fine, Michael. I've spoken with a few of you, so I won't go into too much detail now, but I'm really happy to field individual conversations. But if you haven't already, I really do encourage you to apply for the emergency relief grants. If you've already been down the WINS route and secured the WINS subsidy, then you can come to us for the emergency relief grant, which is a top-up grant to bring it up to a $25 an hour rate for artists and arts practitioners. Then there's the arts continuity grants, which are for projects or phases of projects that will take place between now and the end of September. And I encourage you to get your grants in fairly soon for that, and all of the detail of both of these is on our website. I'm really conscious of the costs that many of you have already incurred, because, you know, particularly because it's this time of year where you do your productions, you pull them together and then you roll them out over the year. And so that a number of you have laid out significant costs, and that neither of those funding packages are about recouping loss. I know that the government has rolled out some support for small to medium business. We're keeping an eye on what they're rolling out generally, so that we can understand where the gaps are, but also the Ministry of Culture and Heritage is developing a cultural response package, a broader one, which hopefully may also address some of those gaps, because it's not just gaps for arts organisations that have already laid out the costs, but also a significant number of community organisations and venues that are really dependent upon these kind of the rolling income for keeping on going. And then, yeah, as you say, Michael, it's the same as when we were responding to the Christchurch earthquakes. This is our emergency response phase. And then the next phase is the recovery phase, or there may be another phase in there. And so we'll be looking at that. I mean, some early thinking will be going up to the Arts Council in the next few days, or at least a framework for how that's going to be developed. And then we'll be announcing that in, I don't know exactly when we'll be announcing that, but I know that it'll be from June onwards. So this is really about, okay, what needs to happen between now and June in terms of funding going out for the emergency response, and then what goes beyond that. So really happy to field any individual conversations. I'll just change my name to my email address so that you can email me directly.
Great, thank you. Kane, you want to?
Yeah, just to follow up a little bit on what has been said. I think that we're in a quite a fragile position. So we've got a sort of a, I suppose, somewhat self-imposed, but also industry-imposed dual responsibility, in that it is essentially a requirement of us as people who work in the young people space and in education quite a lot, that, you know, the art is a subset of what we do, and also we need to deliver a sort of an education component alongside of that. And I don't know if everyone else feels the same, but I feel as though it's A, an expectation, but also B, an important aspect of what I do when I'm working in that space, is that I produce a really good comprehensive education kit that can be delivered inside of schools or in theatres and things like that. But that aspect of it does often slip through the cracks in terms of how to pay for it. And given that we're sort of in a double whammy here, so I had a grant up for a show in the recent round that was cancelled with CNZ. I've invested significantly into that project just to get the groundwork and things done. So the grants won't proceed. I couldn't afford to pay for it myself from here. And then to be able to somehow work out how to fund an education component that's quite a tricky ask for us to get all that back running again once this moment of crisis has passed. And to sort of contextualize that, the way that I've been running my tours, I've been working in countries that will invite us to do schools work for days or weeks before the season. And that's essentially how we develop our theatre audience. That's quite hard to do in places that don't fund that kind of work. But the other side of that is most of the income that I've been making over the last few years has come out of China. And I suspect there's quite a few of us that actually use our international seasons to subsidize our domestic work as well. And the borders are all closed. So that cross subsidy, where essentially countries that pay more can subsidize other seasons, won't happen as well. So I don't know if I've got a solution or anything like that, but just to acknowledge that, you know, there's kind of like a triple whammy of pressures coming on at the moment. And I think it's really important that we understand how all of those connections and relationships and things are going to kind of like come at us all at once when we're ready to sort of go back into presentation mode, if you know what I mean. Yeah, it'll be tricky. It'll be tricky for me, that's for sure. And I'm sure a lot of people are feeling similar. Yeah,
absolutely. Does anyone want to respond to that before someone else? Juliet wants to have a quick chat. Sorry, who was that?
That was me. That was me.
Go, Marion. Oh, I got you.
I couldn't find the button. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, a quadruple whammy. Sorry to add on the whammies here, but
Whammy
the
up.
reality is the world is going to go into a global economic recession bigger than we've ever experienced. And yes, New Zealand has in the past bumped itself back out. I know the government's putting money into small to medium enterprises to sort of invigorate growth there, or even talking about that now. Wellington City Council are talking about that. But really, as artists, we don't have that intel or knowledge to just figure out how to ride those waters. And it would be good to know with CNZ's advocacy that they're doing, whether any research work or exploration into the impact economically with ways to guide artists to navigate those tricky waters, whether that's actually on the radar. It probably is, but it would be good to know whether it is.
I don't know the answer to that, Marianne, but I can find out.
Thanks, Brian. Great. I'm aware of the time, guys. I am aware that we've been on.
I just also wanted to note, in relation to cost, the sad downside of the way that it used to work was that I would often only be able to offer some of what I was making for very wealthy children in the world as well. So I just wanted to also acknowledge that because it's difficult to recoup the costs at a market rate, there's often quite a classed aspect to the way it rolls out. Sorry.
No, that's
Is that a quad? Is that a quad? A five whammy now?
A five whammy. Absolutely, Kane. I agree, and I also I think the difficulty for young audiences in particular is the only way Capital E has managed to overcome that access is through schools. But at the moment, the appetite for schools is really unknown, and teachers don't even know how they're going to cope teaching level 3 next. You know, we've got teachers who are going to be teaching online, and groups of 10 people at a time, face to face. The poor teachers have got so much stress. And so for us to then kind of, you know, amble along with suggestions, it's really sensitive, and it's when do you, acknowledge that our audiences and even parents at home, the same thing with all the online stuff. We have a very sensitive audience, and with quite a number of gatekeepers, and those gatekeepers are highly stressed right now. So it's really hard. Yeah.
Often it feels like I'm approaching an educator and saying, "Hi, would you like to do more work and have more stress?"
Yeah.
It's not a very good offer.
Straight after we started contacting the schools, by the way, I put on Wake Me Up Before You Go on the background, so we've got a quintuple whammy. But we've been contacting schools, and some of them were like, "Why are you contacting us now? We're not ready to think about this." And then other schools, you know, are saying, "Oh, we need to know what's going on because we planned our term around this," and so on. Trying to balance.
So, I'm wondering whether, perhaps not now, but perhaps at another time, there's some more work to do, perhaps, Emma, through Drama New Zealand, and just kind of, you know, figuring out what it is that schools need and what teachers need, and how we as practitioners can take that work off them so much, and kind of how we can support.
I've just actually sent an email to Jenny about we have Associates Hui coming up for Drama New Zealand, where we were inviting practitioners and companies to come and discuss with Drama New Zealand about how we can work with you. It was going to be at the Court Theatre, at Auckland Theatre Company, and at Te Awa, but of course now it's on Zoom. So I've just sent all that information to Jenny and asked her if she can forward that, along with the information if anyone does want to present some workshops to teachers. As I said before, we've got some funding through the Ministry of Education to pay people to present those workshops. So I've sent that information to Jenny to send out to you. But we're definitely happy to converse with people and put ideas out to our branches about how we could be working better with the teachers and with the sector. You know, it's a win-win situation. You can help us and we can help you. And I know there are a lot of teachers out there that this online thing is really hard, and for some teachers, you know, they're dealing with kids at home. I'm lucky my 14-year-old's happy on the PlayStation while I'm here doing this, so I'm not getting that. I haven't got a little child, you know, so I really feel sorry for teachers at the moment. It is hard.
Right. Yeah, thanks, Emma. That's great. I know, Juliet, you wanted to speak a little bit about youth specifically, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Actually, Jenny suggested, because I've been banging on about this for a little while. I spent a little bit of time last year with Youth Theatre Ireland, and they've got such a fantastic model that I really believe we need to follow. And sorry if there's, you know, people here it doesn't relate to. I'm just talking specifically about youth theatre, about youth coming together to make theatre, whether it's for youth or wider audiences, it doesn't really matter, but it's youth theatre that I'm interested in for this specific thing. I also make theatre myself. So what they've got and what they've been able to do in this crisis is they've got a network of youth theatre groups all over the country, and they've got a mechanism where they can all come together and work through this together. They're immediately bouncing ideas off each other. They've got a fantastic youth critics program that they're still taking, you know, theatre critics program that they're still taking applications for, that they're still engaging young people. And I just think it would be a really powerful thing for us to have. Perhaps it could be administrated by PAYPA, but perhaps it's something completely different. I believe I would like to go to UNESCO for funding and also Creative New Zealand. And I think as a collective and a partnership, we've got much more, much more of a, we have more success if we work together. And I'm talking specifically for companies who work with youth making theatre. And yeah, I just want to throw that out there. I'm happy to kick it off and administer it for however long we need to voluntarily until we can get some funding and put some things in place. It's a really powerful thing that they've got. I would also like to suggest a mapping thing like they do in Canada, where they've got that creative arts map of what's going on, a snapshot of the country. And I think PAYPA would be ideal, because you know, to find out exactly what is happening across New Zealand. Once again, is that something that Creative New Zealand could fund PAYPA to do, to have this creative map of who's doing what and how we can connect. And the other one I wanted to mention has gone out of my head completely.
That's great, Juliet. No, thank you. And that sort of segues nicely into Lynn. I might get you to speak a little bit about PAYPA. So yeah, absolutely, Juliet, and just part of my research has been the mapping aspect. So I've done quite a lot of that, kind of figuring out how many companies and things like that. I'm missing people all the time though, so it's that's a challenge in itself, is trying to get this database
that needs to be funded to have it done properly.
Absolutely. But I think, Lynn, if we could just maybe talk a little bit about what we kind of are thinking about in terms of moving forward with PAYPA, because I think you're right, and I think we've said this for a long time, we need a bit of a network. We're sort of stronger as one, and I think we all sort of feel that, and I think we're sort of almost like a subgroup within the theatre industry. And a lot of the stuff that's come back from my research has been that we still are quite undervalued and underfunded as a subsector of the theatre industry. So yeah, so Lynn, do you want to talk a little bit about what our sort of plans are?
Yep, only very briefly, I think, because I think everyone's pretty much saying it all. And what I found incredibly heartening, and thank you to everyone for taking part, is the broad range of voices, even just represented here in the sector, and it's been fantastic to have you know, people from the education sector involved in this conversation today. We've got makers involved, we've got recurrently funded organisations involved, we've got independently funded organisations involved, we've got artists, and we've got people from a range of places around the country. And we're just a snapshot today of people working with children and young people to make work with them and present work with them, or to make work for them, and all of those different flavours. And that's really exciting. And just picking up on what you said, Juliet, which I thought is a fantastic offer around a kind of network of youth theatres. I feel like that is something that PAYPA can really fold into it. The whole idea behind PAYPA is it's come out of this continual rising of people in the industry working in this area, coming together and meeting up and getting excited about working together and advocating for our sector, and being able to say this work is as important as work for adults. It's the same, people. In fact, you know, in many cases, sometimes the work is, you know, fabulous and even better, you know, like it's like, let's really value this work. And in fact, I think we're coming closer together as opposed to breaking off into even more sections is the way to do it. So the idea behind PAYPA, we're formalising ourselves as I think we're going to be a trust, but we'll sort of be an official organisation. At the moment, we're just a collection of individuals who talk together as a kind of governing board, but we're going to be a sort of an official organisation, and we'll go through a process. We'll just invite people to become members. We'd love everyone to become members, and then from that process, I guess what we'll start to do is break into groups within the organisation who can work as in terms of the key issues. And I'm hearing some key issues today are around the funding and support and sustainability of the sector. Then there's the key issue around advocacy. I mean, I think those two, when we had our hui 5 years ago, they were still the two most pressing issues, and that's what we've really got to deal with. I mean, we need a big pot of money that that invests in this work, so that we can continue to make the work and sell it at prices that families can afford, or give it away for free to communities who can't afford it at all. And, you know, also acknowledge that there are communities out there who can afford it, you know, but we need the investment. There's no way we can do this work without a strong fund of money. And I'd be very interested to know what's happening with the Creatives in Schools funding. And I know there was another round for that coming up in July. I mean, with the situation with us all being in a state of unknowing in terms of planning, I mean, is there any way that money can be funded towards some independent artists?
I can speak to you super quickly about that, Lynn, if useful. They will be opening another round possibly in June, to be decided in August for the 2021 year.
Right, okay, so not for 20 years. So, I mean, you know, I think I see PAYPA as a spearhead, and it's just about coming together. So if you're super keen on organising, and you're super keen on sharing some of the load, being a voice, and getting out there and doing some work with us, then please sign up through via Jenny's email, sign up to getting involved. And if you're keen to really get stuck in, please put your hand up. And this is an evolving situation with us as a group to become the sector advocates for us, okay? So yeah, I would just really strongly encourage you to get involved, and together, hopefully we can make some magic happen.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm aware that it's sort of on an hour and a half mark, and I really need to go to the toilet, but I don't know anyone else. But does anyone else want to have any other comments at this stage? I mean, I think this is an ongoing discussion. It's really great to make contact with you all And also to let you know that as a PAYPA board and as we become a trust, we're taking this time, like, to not keep being creative, but to actually think more strategically, to work more strategically, and to figure out some of these issues that we're that everyone's kind of mentioned. So that, and I know we sort of started this about 4 years ago, and then got incredibly busy being creative. So I'm trying to look at it as a positive time that some of us can come together and to do that. Does anyone else want to say anything before we close? Jenny would like to speak.
Yeah, I just want to say very quickly that this meeting, this gathering is really a first step, and hopefully over the next little while we want to gather and meet together again, and there may be, depending on how things evolve, there may be specific reasons that we come together to discuss specific things, or it might be, it might focus on youth theatre and youth arts, or it might focus on TYA, or it might focus on the changed landscape and what is that landscape going to be looking like in a few months from now. So there's all sorts of things that we could come together to discuss. So this is a first step. I have put my email address in the chat notes for anybody who isn't on the PAYPA mailing list, and if you want to sign up. So the PAYPA mailing list is PAYPA at the moment is a network, as Lynn says. We want to formalise, and so we're moving on that right now, but it is primarily a network, and so it is as strong as the contributions that people make for it. And what I do, as I said before, is send out newsletters, ask for news, and then in this instance, because that network has been sitting there, that mailing list is there, we've been able to pull everybody together at a time when it's important for us to do that. So I can't stress strongly enough, please join us if you're not already on that mailing list, or if you know of other people who are not on that mailing list but are involved in performing arts for, with, by young people. Professional practitioners working for, with, by young people, please sign up and join us on the mailing list, and it's a network that we can really use for good in the future. So,
thank you. Thanks, Jenny. And I just want to acknowledge Jenny. Jenny's actually been trying to sort of get us together as a network for probably about 20 years, and she's actually been single-handedly doing this through Education International. And Jenny was my first person that ever hired me out of university to do for children, and yeah, we really value that, Jenny, and I know you've been really digging away in the background behind this for a really, really long time, and that we're hoping that we will actually be able to get this advocacy and this kind of group together.
Not single anymore. So.
Just to back up that advocacy note, like everything's important, the whole ecosystem is important, and what people are doing this year for young people is important too. But if there's going to be an audience or participation in 20 years, there has to be a really strong, well-resourced, resilient arts program for young people and young minds. So our advocacy it's bigger than, us.
Absolutely, and I think, Kane, something that's come out of my research is that we've got so much amazing work happening. We have no shortage of creative talent in this country. It's extraordinary. When you actually start to list it out, you go, wow, throughout the entire country, there's a whole lot of stuff happening for youth, for really little kids, for school kids as well. So actually, it's a matter of kind of coming together now and just kind of working together instead of in our own little silos, and kind of how we can strengthen that. And I mean, just sort of to finish, I mean, I have a bit of a hope that's coming out of this, is that everyone will be so tired of working online and on Zoom that they'll be desperate to get back to the theatre, and that theatre will have this resurgence of meaning in society. So that's my kind of hope that I'm throwing into the future for after this COVID-19 virus, is that we'll actually be so keen to connect, and children will be so happy to be off a screen that we'll be the superstars that come out of that, will be the practitioners that instead of the young
Yeah.
audiences. Yeah, so
just to affirm that, I believe that too. I think that the desire for face-to-face will become more apparent. But just on that note of advocacy and strategy, what would be really awesome would be if we all could communicate quite transparently with each other so that we can figure out who we need to be friends with strategically to enable this to happen. So making those connections with educators and the Ministry of Education, making those connections with groups and other practitioners in the wider arts sector. But it's kind of about relationships and making partnerships with people that we would be worthy to push our cause along, I think.
Oh, great.
Actually,
Yep.
Would you like me to like put an idea out there, or is this?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, I really appreciate what you're doing, and thanks so much for the mail outs, and we've been on your mailing list for a while as well, and keen to be involved with what you're putting together. Just as an idea for when it's all becoming registered and so on, is I've seen in the past a few groups where the leadership's all North Island based struggle to get buy-in from the South Island, and I think from the I don't know if I speak to the people in Christchurch, I think we're all quite happy with what's going on, but but it might maybe it's worth considering getting one South Island representative.
Absolutely, yeah.
Something.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. That's definitely been actually at the top of our list
And the regions.
to get more diversity in the panel in lots of areas. But thank you. Yeah, it's absolutely. So
I think that's a great idea too. But partly, I think it really it'd be great, for instance, if you, Michael, would take it upon yourself to reach out to others that you know in your area and steer them our way. So you don't have to be, on the board, but it'd be great to have somebody in that PAYPA leadership that is from the South Island, but you don't actually have to be part of the leadership to reach out to your colleagues or friends and steer them in this direction. So we'd love to hear more of what's going on in the South Island, because I know that there is stuff going on down there, but it's hard to find it sometimes. So send people our way. Start now.
thank you, everyone. I'm gonna finish that off there. It's been lovely to see you all, and all the best. And thank you, Kane, for your great adminning leadership in this whole forum. It's fantastic. But yeah, so all the best, everyone. And yeah, kia kaha.